Hello, everybody. It's Fiona Lucas here, coming to you live for the Friday, April 1st, Facebook Live. I promise I won't play any April Fool's Day jokes on you today. Everything that I say will be a true reflection of what I'm thinking, feeling, and seeing. So there will be no April Fool's Day jokes on today's live, but it is the 1st of April and April Fool's Day for those of you where it is Friday in the world. I know for some of you it is still Thursday. So if you've just joined in today, please say hi. Let me know where you are listening from in the world. I've got some great questions that have been sent in today and some cool stuff that I want to share with you. I always take some time before these lives to... You can't hear me? Oh, hang on. Can you guys hear me? I'm going to check in. Can you guys hear me okay? Someone's saying they can't hear me. That's on you, Wendy. Okay, cool. No worries. Just making sure that I've got, because it wouldn't surprise me if I've done something wrong with the techie setup here. Okay. Hi, John. Nice to see you, as always. It was you. No worries, Wendy. All good, honey. Lurking from the vet's waiting room. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope your cat, is it Graham, is okay. I sincerely hope they're okay. I always take some time. Hey, Cecily, nice to see you, honey. Hello. I always take some time to kind of sit with and reflect on what it is I want to share with you, and to ensure that I'm in a space where I can share. Hey, Carly, nice to see you, darling. Hi, Tanya. Thank you so much for saying hi, everyone. It does make me feel good, I have to say. I do appreciate it. It's nice to know there are people out there. So yeah, I always take time to sit with what is it that I want to share with you today. What makes sense for me? What am I being called to share? Hey, Sue, thank you so much for saying, how do I pronounce that? Wangari? I'm sure I've just said that totally incorrect. I'm so sorry. I'm sure there's a better, more beautiful way to say that word, or the name of where you are from in New Zealand. I know you're from New Zealand, so my apologies if I've made that sound terrible. But thanks for saying hi, Sue. I always take time to tune in to see where I'm guided to share from, and what is it that I have been guided to share with you today. And that might sound like a strange thing to say, but one thing I do know is that we're all drawing from the pool of collective consciousness and collective wisdom. And so I trust that implicitly, that when I'm about to go live, what is it that would make the difference or be of service to whoever is tuning in? I trust that implicitly. And, the reason why I wanted to share that with you is, when you come from that space, it takes an awful lot off your shoulders. Okay, which means I'm not sitting here thinking, oh, what am I going to say? What are they going to think? I hope it goes okay. I hope I say the right thing. Right. How can I be present for you when I've got that going on in my mind? How can I be present to what is relevant? I've got to take myself out of the equation. Now, I spend a lot of time taking myself out of the equation. There's a reason why I'm sharing this with you, by the way, that is relevant to you guys, and I will circle back around, okay? So if you're sitting there thinking, why is she saying this? What does this have to do with anything? I promise you it does. I spend a lot of time taking myself out of the equation. Now, when I say myself, what I'm talking about is my thinking, the thoughts that I think are true about me. Fungaray. Okay. Wow. I really, really had that wrong, didn't I, Sue? Oh, my goodness. Thank you. I appreciate that. Clearly, it's not spelt phonetically. And, oh, wow. Beautiful. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I spend a lot of time taking myself out of the equation, because when I do that, I remove the limits that I put around things. Okay, I remove the limits that I innocently put around things, that we all put around things. I'm able to put them to one side so I can just be with what is as much as I can. Now, this is incredibly important in our relationships, the ability to be with what is, because so often, okay, we are with what our ego's version of what is. So often we are with our limited thinking around what is, and we get very lost there, and we miss the entire point. So I spend a lot of time getting myself out of the way so that I can be of service, that I can connect to my family, to myself, to my children, to my clients, to my work. I spend an awful time getting myself out of the way, just removing it out of the equation, because that's what allows room for fresh thinking, for insights, for wisdom, for a sense of knowing to show up. Another word for that would be this life force energy that we all have. Everybody has a life force energy. Now, you will know this. It's a very simple thing. When people are no longer with us, they're no longer with us because their life force energy isn't there. Now, your life force energy is what powers everything, okay? It powers your heart, your mind, your brain. It's intrinsically connected to everything, and it's intrinsically connected to all there is. Now, this is a very important thing to understand, because the biggest problems we make in our relationships is we put ourselves in the mix too much. We don't know how to remove ourselves, okay, so that we can actually get a clearer picture of what's really going on. It's very hard for you to understand what's going on when you are in the middle of it. Okay. And when I say you, I mean your thinking, your rigidity, your limits, your rules, your judgments, your assessing, your gauging of something. And what we don't realize is we put this in the mix all the time, and it gets in the way. And it's only when I get an opportunity to get closer to the truth is when I learn to remove myself from a situation. And I think this is a very, 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 very important part of life and me being able to do my work. Okay. So when I'm working with clients, when I'm with my relatable students, I remove myself from the mix. Hence why I very rarely give my personal opinion about things, because what do I know? My personal opinion is going to get in the way of what's there for you to see and understand and have a greater more expanded awareness around. Okay. And in any time you feel stuck in life, the greatest thing you can do is have the knowing that you can connect into that life force energy, get a fresh thought, a fresh perspective, and see things differently. Now, we don't always have that capacity. There are definitely times, and this is true for all humans, that we can't help but be part of the problem. We can't help it. We just don't have capacity. We become part of the problem and we become the problem, and we can't help it. And it's not because there's something wrong with us or there's something missing. It's just the very nature of being human. Hence why I spend a lot of time teaching people the nature of being human. You have to understand this in order to have a sense of resilience, to deal with uncertainty, to handle your own emotional reactions and the emotional reactions of another, to handle your ego and somebody else's, to be able to connect on a deeper level that's not just surface stuff, but to really connect. Now, this plays out in every single aspect and area of our lives. And it is incredibly empowering in our relationships. Incredibly empowering. See, when one person sees this, and this is the game that I'm playing, and a lot of you on here know this about me already, but if you're new to the live, feel free to say hi, or if you're new to my work. The game that I'm playing is one person sees this, then that impacts every person in their family. Then every person in that family gets impacted in one way or another, and that impacts the people around them. And all of a sudden, you go from the individual to the family, to the community, to a town, to a city, to a country. That's how it works. That's the game I'm playing. So one of the reasons I am so passionate about this is because I know when I'm of service to one person, endless amounts of people benefit. And I don't say that because I'm amazing. I say that because that's just how it works. That's the ripple effect. That's the flow on effect. And so many of us get stuck because we think we have nothing of value to offer or contribute. We think we are broken in some way, or we're missing. We think there's something that we need to fix. And instead, when everybody gets to see that there is this innate well-being inside every single one of you, this innate resilience, health, wisdom, love, capacity to handle things that are beyond what we could ever possibly imagine. We all have access to that. You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to use the term life force energy today because that's just what showed up for me as I came on. And when you connect to that, what you find is that you are able to handle a greater level of uncertainty. You are able to stay grounded and calm when there's chaos around you. You're able to see beyond the frailties of another human being and see the innocence in someone and just see their lostness. You're able to let yourself off the hook. You're a lot more forgiving of life, yourself, and others. Now, when someone sees that, there's a heck of a lot more emotional freedom and depth of feeling available. That's what's on offer for people who see that. Now, the more deeply you see that, the better you feel, the difference, you show up differently, your energy changes, and it ripples out everywhere. So this is why I keep pointing in this direction, as opposed to telling you what to do. You know, so many people email me and say, Fiona, I want you to tell me what to do. What do I do here? What do I do there? And what they don't understand, and I want to address this because it's very important. What they don't understand, and I understand why people do it because that's what we've been conditioned to do, right? We've been conditioned to be told what to do. Our parents told us what to do. We went to school and we were told what to do. We go to work and we're told what to do. We are constantly being told what to do, right? And after a while, you rely on that, don't you? Someone else telling you what to do, looking outside of yourself for the answer. That's what you rely on. And we become kind of like asleep at the wheel of our own lives because of that, because we become like robots. And I don't mean that disparagingly. Please don't hear that as an insult. It's just an observation. And it's nobody's fault. It's just what happens. Because people are constantly outsourcing their well-being. Do you have the answer? Tell me what to do. What do you think? And then they'll keep asking and asking and asking. What do you think? And everybody tells them a different answer, and then they get stuck and confused. It's so important that you learn how to tune into your own life force, that you see that in yourself, because then you will draw on that again and again and again and again. You'll draw on the knowing of that again and again and again. This is amazing for relationships. In particular, the relationship you have with you. And I've just released a podcast on about this. Are you your best friend? Because your relationship with you is the one we don't talk about enough. But a big part of that is your ability to draw from what I'm talking about, to get yourself out of the way so you can see what's really there. And the understanding that for all of us, there are times where we can't help but be part of the problem. We can't help it. We just don't have capacity for anything else. Now, this is true of every single human being on the planet. Me, there are times where I don't show up the best way that I want to for my kids. I don't have that capacity in that moment. There are times where I'm not the best partner. There are times where I have a low opinion of myself. Like, these are moments, this is part of the human experience, but I know they are transient. I know they're not permanent. I know they don't mean anything. They're just a reflection of where I'm at in that moment of time. So I don't get stuck there, and I'm not frightened of them. I just know how to navigate them. Okay? Now, as you learn how to navigate your humanness, you get better at navigating everybody else's humanness, because what's the commonality everybody has? Humanness. We're all human. And there are frailties of being human that everybody has. Everybody. This is the sameness that I talk about amongst all humans. This is the sameness. Now, the more deeply you understand this, the easier it is for you to negotiate life, especially when life hits, which it does. And I really wanted to address this today because I know there is a lot of uncertainty in the world right now. Okay, we've got war with Ukraine. Every headline in Australia is talking about interest rates going up, and homeowners should be terrified. You see rates of COVID exploding here and there. There's a lot of fear going on in the world right now, and a lot of uncertainty. Now, your ability to handle that within you is very important when it comes to how you navigate your relationships. Okay? People who struggle to navigate things like this well put a lot of pressure on their relationships. And I know you don't mean to, but can you see how everything's so interconnected? So it can't just be about, Fiona, what do I do here? What do I do there? What do I say here? What do I say there? When you do that, you are outsourcing your well-being. You're giving your power away. You're now giving your power to me. Right? And I don't want you to do that because I don't believe that's in your best interest. Nor is it in the best interest of your family and the people around them for you to give your power to me. I am not better than you. I don't know more than you, and I don't deserve that. Right? Meaning when I say I don't deserve that, I mean your well-being is yours. Don't give it away. It's a precious, precious, precious gift. Protect it and take care of it. Nurture it. I'm very protective of the quality of the feeling I'm in. Because when it's all said and done, that's what I'm left to live with, right? Okay? No matter what happens in life, that's what I'm left to live with. Okay, now I'm going to get to the questions in a second. I'm just checking in to see how people are doing with this. Is this making sense? Is this resonating? If you've just tuned in, feel free to say hi, let me know if this is making sense, and I will start answering a couple of these questions that I've got here. Okay. I'm just reading a couple of the questions again to refresh myself. Okay, cool. Got it. So the first question that I get, and I get this question a lot because you all hear me talk about goodwill. Okay, you all hear me talk a lot about the power of goodwill. And a lot of people say to me, again, because we're so conditioned, aren't we, to go to the how of something first. So many people send me emails, Fiona, what do I do? How do I create it? What do I do? Tell me what to do. What is it? Can you give me 5 things to do to create goodwill? Now, I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to answer it in a different way because the game I'm playing at for you guys is that you feel empowered. And I don't believe if I tell you what to do that that's the way to do it. Right? You feel empowered by trusting yourself, by trusting your gut, by tuning in and not being sure and giving it a go. That's how we develop a sense of empowerment. Empowerment is something that you must experience. You can only be experienced. And as you experience it, you get a feeling of it. And as you get a feeling of it, you want more of it. And I don't believe me telling you what to do is the best way to handle that. So I know some of you probably won't agree with me, but that's okay. So the first thing you've got to understand about goodwill. Goodwill is a feeling. It's not a doing. It's a feeling. It's a feeling that you bring. Okay? Now, you're more in charge of the feeling that you bring than you realize. Really, you are. A big part of what I teach my clients and a big part of what I teach in Relatable. I think it's module 2 is all about that because people don't understand this. So it's a feeling that you bring, right? And then the doing becomes a reflection of the feeling. Okay? But if you don't have a good feeling and you're trying to do on top of that, forget it. You'll get no traction. You'll get frustrated. It will feel like you're trying really hard and nobody's noticing. But that's because perhaps, and again, this is a muscle that you've got to learn to build, the feeling you're in isn't a match for what you're doing. Because remember, as you've heard me say many times, your energy enters the room before you do. So those of you who are looking for how do I create goodwill, you've got to understand that you create it by the feeling you are in. Now, as you experience this, and I think this is something that needs to be experienced, you have a greater understanding of what I mean. As people learn goodwill and they start to experience it, they understand the role of feelings and how that works and how much power we have over them. People say to me, I understand what you mean by goodwill now. I didn't quite get it before. I get it now. That's right, because some things can only be experienced. It's not about them being known. It's about them being experienced. Once you experience something, you can't unsee it. You can forget about it momentarily, but you can't unsee it. The experience creates the depth. The experience creates the knowing, right? So these are things that can only be experienced. So when it comes to goodwill, goodwill is a feeling, and then the doing is a reflection of that. Now, the reason why I'm not also going into goodwill is because, I mean, I can give you some examples, but the problem I have with that is people hang on to the examples and then they don't concentrate on what I'm saying. And this is more important. Okay. This is more important, what I'm pointing to. Goodwill is something that you bring. It is not something that you do. Now, I'll give you an example of goodwill a few years ago between my husband and I. My husband is a musician, first and foremost. He's a drummer. And he has very different taste in music to me. He loves more kind of blues rock. Some of it is quite full on kind of screaming stuff, right? Which he only plays when no one's home. I'll come home if I've been out with the kids or doing something, and he'll have that blaring in seventh heaven. Now, there was a concert. This was a few years ago now, where the guy that he wanted me to see was a real, kind of scream at the top of his lungs kind of concert, and he really wanted me to go. And I was horrified. I'm like, I can't imagine spending 2 hours or whatever it is at a concert listening to this. Like, seriously. And then I looked at my husband's face and I saw how much it meant to him. And I went, Fiona, get over yourself. You can do that. You can do that. You can enter his world and get yourself out of the way. So there's an example of me taking myself out of the way. Take everything that you think you know about this away. You can do that. And go and see what happens. Now, one thing that I will say that I never expected to have happen when I did go to this concert was there was no queue for the ladies. I think because there were about 5 women there. So it's the first time in my life I've ever been to a concert where the queue for the men's bathroom went around the corner and down below and around, and I could just walk straight into the ladies, go and come out. It was like being a guy for the day, right? So that was funny. But, the concert was by a man, most of you would know who he is. His name's Chris Cornell, and I have a much deeper appreciation. I mean, Chris Cornell's no longer with us, but I have a much deeper appreciation of Chris Cornell these days, someone I'd never even heard of before I met my husband. Now, that created so much goodwill between us. Now, and I didn't go there from a place of resentment. I went there with an open mind and an open heart, and I went there because it really mattered to my husband. And I took myself out of the equation. And I embraced it. I enjoyed it. I listened to it. I enjoyed my husband saying, can you hear his tone, Fee? He's got the most amazing tone. He can do this, this, and this. And I really enjoyed watching my husband do something that was so soulful for him. I just loved the experience. And then I loved the fact that I could love that experience. Does that make sense? There was a lot of amazing things that happened out of that. Because I could see that this mattered so much to my husband. So I took myself out of the equation. And I brought this feeling of excitement and curiosity and openness and connection. But I created that. I didn't wait for someone else to create it for me. I brought that to the table because I know that I can, and I know how to do that. So there's an example of goodwill and the power of it. But it's a feeling that you create, right? And so the feeling that you create becomes a reflection, or the doing becomes a reflection of the feeling. But you must have the feeling first, and you can't fake it. It's one of those things you can't fake. You can't fake a feeling. It's either there or it's not. Okay, so there's an example of goodwill. So I hope that makes sense. But it's a feeling, not a doing. It's a very, very important distinction. Okay, next question. If anybody has a question or they want to say hi, if joined in, feel free to say hi. Really appreciate hearing where people are from and if this is making sense and if this is helpful to you. Always love to get a bit of feedback. Okay, next question. I'm just going to quickly read it again. Now, this is a lady who sent me quite a long email about something that's going on in her marriage. And so her question, I'm going to go to the end of her email rather than going through the whole email because I want to preserve her confidentiality around this. How do you deal with thinking that is so extreme and different from your own? Great question. How can I stop seeing his beliefs and actions as wrong and show up differently? How can I get my power back? Well, a couple of things here, okay? A couple of things that are really, really important to understand about that. So first of all, how do I deal with thinking that is extreme and different from my own? Well, you have to understand the way thought works, okay? You have to understand the way thought works. Very, very important thing. Very first thing I teach in Relatable, because people don't teach this. They teach us how to fight our thinking. They teach us how to overcome our thinking, but they don't understand. They don't teach you how it actually works. So the first thing is to understand that, right? And I can't teach you that in a 5-minute live. I just can't. But I'm telling you, that's the first thing. You've got to understand the way that works. Because when it does, the way you relate to your thinking around that changes. And the way you see the other person's thinking profoundly changes. Okay? So number one, that's a very big part of it. Number two, the way you stop seeing another person's belief and actions as wrong is when you realize that there is no one way to see anything in life. There simply is not. People don't understand this. There is no one way to see anything. There just isn't. Now, I know people are going to argue with me about this and put a lot of yeah buts, but what about people who kill people? What about people who are evil? What about this? What about that, right? But I'm just going to say to you, this is how it is. This is just how it is. No two people see the world the same way. So when there is no one way to see anything, ever. Now, what does that mean in real terms? Well, if you understand that there are infinite ways of seeing something, then how can your way be better? That would presume that there's only one way, right? That's the presumption you're bringing to it. There's only one way. And there just isn't. There are infinite ways to view something. So infinite, listen to the word I'm saying, infinite viewpoints. But what we do is when we're in our ego mind will convince us that everybody needs to see the world the way we do, that the way we see it is better, that we know more, okay? That's just what it does. Now, when you have a different relationship with your thinking, that changes dramatically, okay? So you've got to understand there is no one way to see anything. There are infinite realities. Now, when people understand this, it doesn't make sense to fight for yours over somebody else's. How can someone else's be wrong? That would make yours right. Now, if yours is right, that means yours is the only one. Now, that is an illusion. Okay? That's an illusion. Because there is no one way to see anything. The only way there's one way to see anything is that exists only in your mind. Right? We're all equal and nobody's right and nobody's wrong. That's a very human thing to put on something. So the depth to which you know and see that will determine, right? So the depth to which you know and see that will determine how much you believe someone else's actions are wrong. Now, whilst ever you believe someone else's actions are wrong, you're going to show up from judgment, you're going to show up from upset, you're going to show up from anger and all the other things that come from that space, right? It's only as you see, and I mean, you've got to deeply see what I'm saying, that you're then able to show up differently because you're not in the feeling of judgment, wrong, right, good, bad. You're not in the feeling of what we would call duality. It's this or this, because there is no such thing. Now, finally, how can I get my power back? You get your power back by everything that I've spoken about in this live answers that question. Every single thing that I've spoken about in this live is an answer to that question. So I would encourage you to listen back because it's in seeing what I'm saying and having an experience of what I'm saying that enables you to get your power back. This is how people get their power back, because they stop giving it away. So people innocently give their power away all the time. They think it depends on what someone else thinks of them. They think it depends on a relationship they've had for years and years, and when they lose it, right? But that's a temporary experience. We always move through experience and come through the other side of it. We always, experience rectifies itself, funnily enough. And the more deeply you are in connection with your own life force energy, the easier and easier it becomes, because you let go. The reason why we suffer so much is we hold on so very, very tight, us little humans. And we hold on to right, wrong, good, bad. We hold on to judgment. We hold on to blame. We hold on to anger. We get frightened of our emotions. And we give our power away. Now, once you stop doing all of that, right, life and people and everything in it becomes so much easier to navigate. This is what I mean by ease. This is what I mean by flow. This is what I mean by being present and connected. This is what I mean by letting go. So that you can be more present to the now, because the now is where love resides. Okay? Hey, Roz. Hey, Brian. Nice to see you. As always, thanks for saying hi, honey. All right, so we're almost at the end of time, as in time for today, not the end of time, figuratively speaking. So I'm just going to check in. Does anybody have a question for me before I sign out? Any feedback on what they've heard today? Anyone want to say hello? Anything else before I sign out from today's live? And I thank you all for tuning in. Just going to check in now. And whilst I'm doing that, I will put the link for Relatable here, because I've just had someone message me and ask me for it, like I always do. If you're looking for a deeper understanding of everything that I've talked about, you will find it in Relatable, okay? You really will. Everything, every answer to every question you will find in that program. I've put it all there. Okay. And yes, I do have a podcast called Relatable, which you are more than welcome to check out. The link to that is, I'll put that here too. I've just released an episode. I try to release at least one per month, try to do two. I just get so caught up in other things. I don't always have time, but I do my best. Podcasts are a massive amount of work for anybody who's hours and hours and hours of work. But they're a labor of love and my way of giving back. So if you have a question that you would like me to answer for you, I will keep your identity confidential if you wish. You can send me an email to hello@fionalukis.com.au and I will answer it for you next Friday at 1:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We're still in daylight savings time here in Australia, so we go back on Sunday. So that's going to change things for you. It's probably going to make things an hour earlier, I think, maybe in your time zone. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. I hope this has been helpful. And thank you, Cecily. Appreciate that, honey. Appreciate that. Thank you, everybody. And I will see you all next week. Lots of love. Ciao.